Hey guys, what's going on? Bobby here, and welcome back to a brand new season of the ATA Network podcast. Yes, I am back behind the microphone, excited to bring a brand new season of the podcast to you guys. I can come up with a bunch of excuses as to why I wasn't able to really continue on that first season, but essentially life just happened. I mean, if we go back to the first season of the podcast, I keep forgetting it was 2 years ago. So this is 2020. I was running Ignite, went on to win a championship, and then last year in 2021 was also super busy for me. And we'll get into that. We'll recap that on the show today. But along with talking about last year on today's show, I'm going to have a guest along with me as well. So we'll be able to talk to somebody, get to know somebody that was actually with me through those years, through those fun times of racing, Mr. Matt Zigaitis. And if you guys are familiar with the vlog, watch all my YouTube videos, you guys know who Matt Zigaitis is. He's the guy behind the camera. He's the guy that's able to make the show run. I wouldn't have been able to share all these cool experiences without Matt behind the camera. And, people could say, he's just a videographer, right? Like anybody can run around with a camera. And first and foremost, with my videography background, it's just not that easy. And second off, Matt brings such a flavor to the vlog that is, you got that good professional quality of cinematography, but there's also that raw live, it's not super overdone cinematic. It feels raw. It feels like you're there in the moment. And that's just something that, me and Matt both together, we share that common viewpoint. And so it's cool to be able to have him come along and we'll talk to him about everything, get to know him a little bit. He does kart racing as well. We'll talk to him about that. And then we'll talk about some of the shared experiences we've had over the last couple of years and really get to know him. So without further ado, though, let me bring him on the studio. Matt Zigaitis, welcome to the podcast.
What is going on? It is good to be here. This is kind of weird, as I look around this little podcast universe here. This is actually pretty cool. It's been a long time since I've been on the respective radio waves here, so it's awesome to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's it was pretty obvious to me. I go back to like the early days of my channel, and there was always, I had friends of mine that would help me make videos, and I had like a little hierarchy system of like, I was technically like the president of ATA. I'm the owner, I'm the runner, I do everything. But then I'd always have friends that would come along and I'd give them this fancy little title of vice president. And, I retired that. Yeah, I retired that once I got out of high school. And now I kind of look at you as my vice president. Like I always bounce things off of you. You always help me out make these videos. So it was pretty obvious to me when I was coming back with the podcast, wanted somebody to talk to, just getting things up to speed. It was pretty obvious that you were the man to bring on the show.
Principal Director of Photography.
Principal Director of Photography, PDOP.
Sure. Sounds good.
So, I kind of gave you a little bit of an intro there at the start of the show, but for people that don't know Matt Zigaitis, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Well, I imagine that I'm twice as old as most of your audience, but youth really knows no age. I love hanging out with the karting family and everything here in St. Louis. But no, I'm a military veteran, U.S. Navy, 2003 to 2008. Actually got started in the Navy looking towards a career in combat photography, which also includes videography. And if you want to go all the way back to the beginning, I, like yourself, was a mass comm broadcasting and film student at what is now University of Central Missouri out there in Warrensburg. But unlike you, I actually didn't finish. I actually ended up joining the Navy. It just took a wild transition from that point forward. But yeah, so now I'm a civilian employee for the Department of Defense, and that's helping create a nice little comfortable life for myself and my family. But most importantly, it helps fund my racing career, my amateur racing career, because I'm not going to lie about it. It's not like I'm trying to go professional. I'm just trying to have fun in my early 40s here. So, yeah, having a real good time doing photography for you, doing all the video work, traveling across the nation with you, and capturing your journey rising, and what a remarkable one it is becoming. With that, and so yeah, just having a good time racing, videoing, if that's a term. But yeah, just that's me in a nutshell there.
Yeah, it's definitely been crazy. I mean, you talk on a lot of things there that bring a lot of things up, in my mind is like I never really knew your background when I first asked you to start recording for me. And it just makes so much more sense now as to like how we're able to really connect well, in a friendship way and a business kind of way as well.
Yeah.
You have this interest and passion for racing, and you've also had this passion for multimedia. So it just seemed to work out really well between me and you. That's for sure. And to be able to see you kind of go through the same path, and we'll get more into this, between you running iDrive and winning the championship last year, and now transitioning to Ignite, which is something that I've done. And while we have the differences of where, and to be fair, I just thought it was a hobby for me too until it evolved to what it is now. But it's also a hobby for you as well. So all those similarities between me and you really help. It helps us as friends, but I think it also helps keep a good, consistent message out there on YouTube, because the shots that I would get are the same shots that you're already going out in there and getting for me.
Yeah, no, and I'm not exactly sure how you roped me into running around the track like an idiot for you, capturing all those cool shots and angles. But definitely when you and I first met, it was at the Gateway Kartplex at Worldwide Technology Raceway in Madison, just outside St. Louis. That has become home, a second home to many of us, and at least for a small percentage, or at least a good percentage of your audience. And when we had first met at, I'm sure, an iDrive event early on, there were there was many things about you that like I saw a younger version of me in there. So I mean, there was definitely some relatable things there, and it just I knew that it was going to be a good friendship, and we had a lot of things in common. And the more we talked, the more I was able to re-engage that former passion of filmmaking or just videography in general. I had done some work with ESPN early on when ESPN2 was just being born. Did that as a teenager, and so capturing live action photography, or videography rather, there were definitely things there that I'm like, yeah, I can get on board with this. And it wasn't unpleasant, running around. I mean, it was fun as hell. So, I'm definitely glad that you brought me on board with that opportunity, and just having fun with it. I mean, I think that's a big thing that is about your episodes, your YouTube episodes, that not only do they capture the essence of karting in general, but you have fun with it. And I think we feed off of each other very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is like when I originally started, iDrive videos for me were pretty much self-shot. I only really used the GoPro footage. It wasn't until I started Ignite is when I had, the B cam, if you will. And fortunately for me, I had a lot of the iDrive friends that were stuck in iDrive that weren't racing Ignite that came out on Ignite days to film for me. So like that first year, I wouldn't have been able to do it without Scott McClendon primarily, Austin Russell, he came out. And then that second year, it was still like a lot of the same people trying to help me out. But, Scott McClendon was racing in Ignite. Austin Russell was racing in Ignite. And so then I'm having to try to feed off more of these iDrive people. And then I actually brought one of my fellow classmates at the time from SIUE, Steve. He came out and filmed for me a couple times as well. But, you know, as soon as I found you, like I could just definitely see a difference in the content for sure. I mean, it's one thing like Scott or Austin or whatever, like they would film me out on track, and then it's kind of like, okay, we're time to be buddy, you know, once we get off track. And I don't think they really understood, you know, like you're shooting a video and you're trying to tell the story. And as soon as you turn the camera off and you're talking to me and I'm telling you about my race, then it's like me and you being just buddy, but there's no documentation of it. The good thing that me and you have is kind of like that we both understand you know, we see each other right after a race and we want to talk about it, just me and you. But you're good about keeping that camera rolling and
always keep it rolling. You never know what you're going to get. You can fix it in post anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and we're both patient enough to realize that, you know, I can't do what I'm doing without the video. I mean, that's the only reason that I've been able to continue on. The reason that I was able to keep the cart for an additional 2 years in Ignite was because of my video making. Because I was able to get to Skip Barber was because of the videos. And so you had that equalized understanding of that, and I think that really helps tell my story more efficiently. So I honestly, like I've always said it before, and I'll say it again, I honestly could not have done all of this without you.
Well, I appreciate that, man, and it's been fun. Even though you've made me take several days of vacation, it's cool. I certainly don't mind that because where I'm at now compared to where I was like 6 years ago, vacation time is definitely in more supply. But no, I actually have a good time cutting away and, you know, running down to Road Atlanta or Coda for the 150,000th time. But no, man, it's been fun as hell, and I'm glad that you asked me to join. And no, it's definitely a good technical business relationship that you know we'll enjoy for as long as we can, because as you briefly touched on, I'm now in Ignite, so it's going to change things quite a bit.
It's gonna be a whole another ball game for you for sure, and we'll touch more on that here in just a moment. We're gonna have you on for multiple episodes, right? I mean, the experiences and the things that we've done together, man. I mean, you just can't tell that in a one episode podcast. So I just want to let everyone know out there that Matt's coming back for sure, and we're gonna really dive into, you know, how I got into Skip Barber and your involvement in that deal. And how I went from, you know, basically the story goes, I went from meeting Skip Barber at an auto show, fast forward to now, and I'm the marketing manager at Skip Barber Racing School. So that story in itself is pretty fascinating. And I think for people out there that, you know, are kart racers and want to know how to get to the next step in racing, I think that show is going to be really good, because you may not be able to copy and paste exactly what I did, but there's definitely things out there that you can do as a kart racer to, you know, be better behind the wheel, help market yourself, those kind of things that I think you're definitely going to be able to take away from it. But one thing that I do want to touch on real quick, Matt, is, and me and you share in this, and I don't think the average audience person knows, but let's just take it for an example, and we'll get to this in the second half of the show when we talk about our 2021 recap, if you will. How difficult is it to film one of these videos? Let's just take, for an example, let's just talk about Mid-Ohio, for example, right? I mean, some people just see action shots of the car and I'm pulling GoPro footage and then talk to the camera. It doesn't look like a lot once you look at the post-production video, but in the moment, like how much work is it between me and you to be able to get one of these videos put out?
Oh man, you want to go to Mid-Ohio? I thought we were going to start with you stuffing my ass in the back of a 750 horsepower Roush Mustang pace car in the rain at Road Atlanta.
Well, and that sounds fun, but and it is, you know.
Fun.
But you know, I mean, there's a lot of things, and let me start this out with this comment. There's things that we do in the moment that sucks, right? I mean, like, you go back to Road Atlanta and it was wet the entire time. You know, Mid-Ohio, it rained in Mid-Ohio. Coda, it rained in Coda. So there's all these, like, you're getting poured on, and in the moment it's like, this sucks. Like, I'm out in the cold, wet shooting video. Like, but then you look at the video, and then you look at the product you made at the end, and it's like, damn, it was all worth it.
Yeah, so from my end of the spectrum, I mean, you and I do what we can in order to work out some must-have shots, and we definitely do some advanced research on the facility that we're going to be going to, different sight lines. Of course, you try to use what's already available to you. So you want to look to any previous race broadcasts of a particular race like F1 or NASCAR or Indy, at any one of these facilities, and try to find out where they shot from. A lot of those guys shoot from risers. So, that's obviously not going to be available to us. So, sight lines are going to be slightly altered, but, we hit, we download maps and, of the facility, and we hit spots that, we want to shoot at. But one of the big important things for me specifically, because this is a one-man camera, road crew, is I've got to figure out how to get there once the race starts, or once the on-track activity begins. I want to make sure that I try to get as much coverage as possible. So I literally have to, draft out an itinerary, where I'm going to be going for shot one at the beginning of the race, usually starting at the grid, you suiting up, you prepping to go into battle. And then I'm like, okay, for this practice session, I'm going to be at point A, point B, and point C, which is like turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, and, I'll do a couple of passes at, different shots and things like that. And then once, I get a couple of shots at turn one, or I should say a couple of laps at turn one, then I move to turn two and I change things up there. And then, once, the new practice session or like the first race goes, by that point, we usually have the system down and at least well rehearsed, that I know where I need to go, what access roads I need to take. Doing a lot of work that would otherwise be, shared amongst other cameras that are already pre-staged. But in this particular case, I've got to do a lot of it myself. So once it gets to the race, it's well rehearsed, and we're able to go, pretty much all around the track, and shoot what I need to shoot, even if it's in one event. Mid-Ohio was actually rather easy, pretty easy to get around, especially, from the paddock to turn two, the hairpin there at the end of the long straight that sets you up to go into the technical roller coaster. That I would get the race start, and then do a lap or two there, and then I'll haul ass down to turn two in your car, and then I will lose a lap between getting from turn two to the infield of the roller coaster. And once I got to the roller coaster area at Mid-Ohio, I could pretty much get anywhere on foot. So shout out to my 2018, 2019 cardio fitness that got me into shape for 2021. So it wasn't that much of a burden until it started raining. And then I'm like, oh, I've got to take it out on foot. Otherwise, I'm going to get Bobby's car stuck in the grass.
Yeah, my little 2019 Fiesta can't off-road as well as a pickup truck it could, so...
Yeah, and there's lots of gravel roads there. So unfortunately, my Travis Pastrana was not captured on camera. But needless to say, it was difficult to keep track of the time, in sense that the Skip Barber races aren't, based on laps, they're based on time. So, it's like a 30-minute race, and as opposed to like a 30-lap race. So I can... I usually have to set myself a timer. I'm like, okay, I got about 5 minutes to go. I need to start heading towards the direction of the finish line. Especially if you're doing very well in that race, I want to be able to capture that magic moment, of the cross checkers as you come across the line. But I'd say in all, starting at COTA, which is possibly the largest facility that I've ever been at, and not terribly easy to get around, but easy enough. I had a lot of fun, shooting all the Skip Barber Formula races with you, and you can definitely tell that as the season progressed, our system got very efficient, and we knew what to do.
And like from my end of the production side, I mean, one thing is like I'm racing.
You will?
In the karting days, I could be a little bit more of a director because it was a little bit more relaxed atmosphere. Another thing too that I want to mention is I typically in editing, I don't mix the session footage. So it's not like you can shoot at, half the track for qualifying and then the other half of the track for the race, and I can piece some kind of magical thing together where it looks like I got cameras in every corner. So, when you shoot for the race, that's the only footage that I'll use when I'm showing the race on YouTube. And that comes for a couple reasons. One, the changing weather conditions and track conditions, it's not going to look the same. And two, it's just the way that I like to promote the honesty of my videos. And on top of that, like you mentioned, we've only got one camera guy. We don't have a camera crew. And one thing that helps us a lot is, obviously the onboard cameras, me having the GoPro on the helmet. So that way, if something happens on the race, or during the race rather, that you don't necessarily capture from that B cam, I've got it on the GoPro. So, there's the intensity of you trying to get everywhere, but then I can also just, resort back to the GoPro if I have to. And fortunately, most of the stuff that we've shot, I would say it's maybe 50-50 on GoPro to B-roll, which is really good considering, like I said, only one videographer running around the racetrack.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on the whole truthful validity of what you see is what you're actually getting. You've helped me out making this partnership both equitable and worthwhile to come out here and shoot these videos with you. So I want to be able to get the footage that, lends the credibility and the validity to your videos and to your individual race sessions. So if it means running my ass off or driving my butt all the way around the track, doing whatever I have to do in order to speak to that, in your particular case, you're probably the only one that I'll literally work for M&Ms, or in this case, some fixed Southern House fried chicken.
Yeah, dude. And we'll get into more of that in that future Skip Barber episode. So if you're not already subscribed or following this show, you're definitely going to want to stay tuned because we'll have some stories, not only between that fixed chicken, but you can't forget about music bingo.
Oh my God.
So yeah, like I said, we'll get into it. We don't want to get into it here. Otherwise we'll be here all day. But
sounds good.
For sure. Let's make the transition now. We've talked enough about you doing the video stuff, but real quick, let's get into your karting stuff as well. I mean, one aspect of our friendship is clearly that video partnership where you're helping me shoot my videos. But one thing I've been able to help you out with is kind of trying to coach you and mentor you, which sounds really weird because the age difference, right? But I've gone through the rental karting system at Gateway Kartplex through the iDrive series, which for those that don't know, iDrive, you show up on a Wednesday night, you pay your $50, $60, whatever it is, and then you get 2 races out there on the racetrack in a rental cart. You do that for 2 seasons, one in the spring, one in the fall, 7 races each, 14 rounds in total, 28 races, I guess, altogether in the year. And then they take the top 10 from spring, top 10 from fall. They invite them to a shootout. You go out, you race that shootout for 3 races. The winner, the most points at the end of that day, wins the iDrive Championship for the year and brings home an Ignite Series scholarship to race the Margay Racing Ignite K3 Briggs LO206 motor package for the following season. You can take that kart anywhere. You can race it at Gateway. You can race it in Ignite Challenge. You can go down. You can race it at Charlotte for the WKA Series when they go down there. You can even race it at Daytona if you want to. They just got done with the Daytona event at the end of December last year. So, I mean, this is a big deal, right? I mean, there's many, like, for example, you win Ignite, right? You get a slap on the wrist and they say, well, you won the championship. You can't race next year. But for somebody that's racing a rental kart to win a scholarship to then race a 4-cycle kart at the potential national level, that's a big deal. So, Matt Zigaitis, talk me through your this past year, 2021. Basically, just to summarize it, and I'm sure you'll be able to tell me more details and more of the specifics and make it not sound so easy. This past year, you did what I did in 2017. You went through, you won the iDrive championship. Talk me through what that means to you, and what was that year like for you?
First of all, the iDrive karting league program headed up by Keith Scharf at the Gateway Carplex, bar none, is an amazing program. So if you do have the opportunity, if you are in the area locally or within driving distance, I would definitely recommend turning off that console, turning off that PC simulator, and come out and actually put your mettle to the test. I love kart racing. It's a very affordable sport. And for those reasons, that's why I actually got my butt in the seat. I had heard about, league racing, and I'm like, man, you know what? I got to do that. I did a little bit indoor league racing and realized I've got a lot to learn. But at the same time, I didn't really enjoy the indoor karting experience for my own personal reasons. I watched for several seasons the iDrive from the stands, and I just wanted to pick up and learn, because this isn't something that I just wanted to do. This was something that I wanted to excel at. Getting into the kart was the best thing for me. It's meeting different people, within the grid, other drivers and the like, picking up little tidbits of information, to improve my racecraft. That was really the key determining factor going into the 2021 season. But before I do that, I do want to just briefly touch on, I had a really good 2020. I had a great battle with my heavy class compatriot, Rick Neal, going into the championship shootout that you had just, briefly talked about. You go through the regular season, you invite, if you're in the top 10, you get invited to the champion shootout. All points are reset to 0. At the end of the third race, it's winner take all. And Rick Neal and I, we had an amazing shootout, and the guy beat me by 4 points. And I wasn't bitter about it at all. Yeah, I was a little upset, but he beat me by 4 points. And I'm just like, man, that was fun. That was fun. And so we knew that we had very similar racing styles. We were very similar in body weight. So there were some parallels there that actually helped set up 2021, because I didn't just do iDrive in 2021. I also did Ignite Mechanic for Rick Neal. So while he ran the scholarship ride that he took from me, I'm actually learning on the kart. So when I do eventually get there, not if, but when I eventually do get to Ignite, he and I will have some real good baseline data. So maybe we can go a little bit of shake and bake Talladega Nights style when I do get up there. And so, racing with him in 2020 really helped me set up 2021. And of course, working with you and, you being so selfless with your knowledge, like a good Jedi, passing on what you've learned. Nothing good comes for free. So, there's a little bit of cooperation there. The information that you provided really helped me set up myself for 2021, because Rick Neal was no longer in the iDrive program. I didn't really have a whole lot of, some people would say like on-track camaraderie. I didn't have any on-track allies. It was really, okay, 2019, 2020, what you've learned to this point, you got to really do this on your own. And so we finally were able to have 2 separate seasons for 2021, unlike 2020, where it was one full extended season due to COVID-19. But 2019 spring season, arguably right out of the box, it was a great season. Ended up, I don't have the stats in front of me, but definitely started working on some more race wins. Qualifying was improved. My podium finishes were starting to stack up, and ultimately at the end of the spring season, I ended up winning the spring season championship over Mark Schweigen by 3 points. So it was a very tight race. And to be able to beat somebody, if anybody knows Mark Schweigen, this guy is like the freaking king of the cart, a dominant force to be reckoned with when you get into the iDrive rental carts. David versus Goliath, things like that, so to be able to, clash with him very cleanly, it meant the world to me to be able to be that David versus Goliath and be able to win that race or that season by 3 points, and very, very, assuredly locking me into the championship shootout at the end of the year. Took a couple of weeks off, and then I could have just, rested on my laurels and just kick back and relax. I'm like, okay, guys, I'll take the fall season off. I'll see you guys in October for the shootout. I didn't want to do that because I needed to stay frosty. There's something about being in the cart, and if you know anything about karting, or if you don't, seat time matters. And so I did not want to take any time off, regardless if I needed to be there or not. I wanted to get there and run the full fall season as well, because at the same time, you may have new competitors that will pop in. And we did have some new competitors, and that presented an entirely different challenge. So, I mean, they were definitely busier in the fall. We had more split groups for the Ignite, the iDrive, rounds. And if anybody knows anything about that, there is a certain cap on the grid. If there's 14 or more drivers, for safety purposes, they'll split the field as equally as possible. So you have a group A and a group B. I didn't really have a good opportunity to be racing who I deemed to be my Lewis Hamilton or my Max Verstappen, or, if you will, like Craig Pyatt was the guy that I knew that I was going to be facing in the shootout. And unfortunately, a lot of the fall season, I didn't get the opportunity to race side by side with him. So I just kept a close eye on him and, how he was doing throughout the season and what layouts he was stronger or I was stronger in. I obviously take it very seriously. That's obviously no surprise to anybody. If you follow me on the socials, I love it. It's a hobby. I take it very seriously. But going into the shootout, I was as prepared as I could be. And just as I was going into the spring 21 season, this is where it all comes together. You need to have good, clean races and good qualifying, and you just need to, now's the time to put your money where your mouth is and get the job done. And fortunately enough, all that seat time, I think, mattered. All the information and racecraft that you share with me, Bobby, as well as Schweigen and, the other competitors that I talked to, it all came together. We ended up landing the pole position for the first heat. Actually ended up, I believe, leading all the laps there except one, and won that race. And then for Heat 2, they flip the entire grid based off of the qualifying efforts. So I went from first to dead last. And so one of the things that I needed to do, the goal was clear. If I wasn't going to win the race, the only goal that mattered was get to the front as fast as you can. And luckily, picking up on some Adam Krepin racecraft there, I pulled out a few Maverick maneuvers and was able to get up to the front, and I was battling for the podium early on. Unfortunately, glanced off of a spinning second place, and that pushed me back to, I want to say, like fourth or fifth. Ultimately, it took the opportunity to win the second race away from me, because I definitely think that we had the pace in order to get that done. But still, ultimately, I finished second. And then going into the third and final heat, based on your average finishing position, I was, awarded the pole position once again. And at that point, this is the final act. This is where you're going to close out the show, and you're either going to have a standing ovation or you're going to get tomatoed. And so in this particular case, I took off like a bat out of hell. And it actually, early on in the in that final heat, it actually started drizzling. And I'm like, of course, this isn't going to be easy because now the track is going to be even more slick. It's already colder than hell out, so the track conditions changed drastically from heat 1 to heat 2. And ultimately, staying consistent, all that seat time, everything, there was so much that was running through my mind, focusing on and touching on going into each corner that ultimately I think I ended up building up I want to say around a 4+ second gap between myself and second place in the drizzle, in the wet, not like full on wet, but just enough to make it really interesting. Ultimately was able to bring it home. I wasn't going to pull a Jeff Gordon and start crying in victory lane, but damn, dude, I was getting pretty close there for a minute there because, I was reminded of why I started, and that's always something that I think everybody needs to do is, when you are trying to challenge yourself, obviously it's something for your own reason, for your own goal, and it could suck multiple times, but as long as you remember why you started, I think that will help you maintain your focus. And as I was screaming, literally yelling, coming into the grid after my victory in heat 3, it all kind of came back together and reminded myself why I started. And I just wanted to get out there and I wanted to try something new. And after 3 years of trying, it finally all came to an end and I won the shootout. And so with that, I ended up winning the iDrive Series Championship for the heavy class. And a nice little dinger for that one was I managed to score the most points of all 3 class champions that day, between light and medium as well. So I was damned to get the job done, and we swung for the fences and we were able to put it out in the parking lot. So I was really happy that day.
Yeah, dude. Dude, your little like talk there, it brought up so many things for me. Like, first off, I was super bummed that I missed that because typically I've been at those events, whether, early on with the iDrive shootout, it was run in conjunction with the Ignite series. So I would, like when Austin Russell won the championship, I was there because I was racing. And then the year prior in 2020, I was there via being a commentator. I was working for Gateway Carplex at the time and I was announcing the races. Unfortunately, though, I wasn't there when you won. Last year I was actually off on a vacation to Colorado with my girlfriend Haley, so I was disappointing, but I remember going through on social media and like every, in between our destinations that we'd go to, I'd get on Facebook and check, and there was one time I didn't really see anything, and then the next time I went on and it was like everything popped up and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna freaking do it. And then that's when I called you and like left you that message. I was like, yo bro, I was just gonna call you and let you know that, congrats or whatever. And then you called me back and I was just like so happy for you, man. So
thank you. Yeah. It was a damn good day.
And you mentioned like that you almost cried, and like when I won, I cried, and it's the same, and it's the same thing. Like, and you were like, I remember, I have the video of it, so it's easy for me to remember. But I pull into the pits, and I've got Matt Chubb and Colin Predith, 2 guys that were a part of the original iDrive Boys gang, there that were racing Ignite that high-fived me, which meant a lot to me. It was kind of like a welcome to the Ignite crew, from those guys. And then I pull in and stop, and you kind of put your hand on my shoulder before I even got out of the cart, and I put my head down on the steering wheel, and I was just crying, and it hit hard. And then I remember going up, and the first person to come congratulate me was Brendan, and he's like, you did it, man, welcome to the Ignite series. And it was cool for that, and that's another similarity that, there's a lot of similarities that I see between me and you. You had your Rick Neal, and then I had my Brendan Lauer, and to me, to be able to get that from Brendan, and we raced each other hard, really hard on that final race. I mean, I'd put the bumper to him a little bit, get him loose out of a corner, pass him. I'd give him room to pass me, and he ended up winning that third heat, but I'd won the first 2, so I kind of knew that I had the insurance there of like, I can finish about 4th and still win it. Right. And there was like this weird thing, like, beyond racing, right? Like, get the racing aspect out of it too, but there was a thing going into that final race for me of like, Brendan Lauer, he's my friend, but will he wreck me for an Ignite cart, And so like that like haunted me going into that. And that race was cool for a lot of reasons. Obviously winning the championship in the kart was, I think a minor thing that I took away from that. What I really took away from that was, it was an amazing race. It was probably one of my best races, close side-by-side racing with another driver that I've had in a rental cart ever. Like, me and him were trading battles. We pulled away from the field. Nobody was going to challenge us, but we raced each other hard, and the field didn't catch us. And that's one thing, like in iDrive now, that I see just the different driving styles, right? People, for example, one thing that we didn't do back in 2017 was, hug this inside line all the way down the backstretch just to keep people from passing you on the inside. Me and Lauer would go all the way out. We'd run the normal line around Gateway, and if the driver got to the inside and got to run out of the corner, you give him the inside and you let him pass. That's just the respectful amount of racing that we did with each other. And, you don't see that anymore. And to be able to share that with Brendan for the cart, you just wouldn't see that nowadays. And so, there's a lot of similarities that I see between us, not only like your Rick Neal and my Brendan Lauer, but like your willingness and your want and your desire to excel at it. The first time I did iDrive, it was a hobby, but as soon as I went out and I think I got like 2 podiums my first night, then it was on, man. Like, I was full on committed to going out there and trying to win a race and then win a championship and go into Ignite and win Ignite. And then, there's just a lot of the similarities that I see there between me and you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, getting back to you're saying that how iDrive has changed, it's even changed within the 1 year that you've been gone, because you brought a lot of, you brought a lot to the Gateway Kartplex, and both just in technical, working on the carts and testing them, making sure they're all prepped for the league night, because these are the same carts that your family and your kids can go out and run during summer vacation. They're
and absolutely destroy when we get to iDrive, so that way I got to fix it in time for the Wednesday league.
They're going to get abused, only to be abused further in the iDrive league event. But since you had departed, I think like Schweigen and Bierke and Eggemeyer, and I'm sure I'm missing a few others, they had a lot of input on, working on the cards, making sure that they were getting equal. So, it almost felt like, they were as equal as they could be within a couple of tenths of each other, from the fastest cart to the slowest cart. And so there was a lot of tight racing, but in the same case, there was also some of those guys that were able to just stay consistent and were able to really stretch it out and put themselves into their own zip code. But touching point on the aspect of respect, on track, it seems like the last couple of years, and this isn't just at the Gateway Kartplex, this is, I think, over motorsports in general. Not that I'm much of a pundit to speaking to everything there, but there's just been an essence of disrespect on the track. Everybody's just trying to fight tooth and nail, and they don't have a problem of getting their elbows out. You've seen it in NASCAR, you've seen it in potentially at Indy, you've seen it in F1. Verstappen is not afraid to get those elbows out and race hard and race aggressive. And so that was one of the things that I was going into the championship shootout this past October, knowing I was going to go up against Craig Pyatt. While we have he and I respectively have only gotten our elbows out maybe once with each other, and that incident was questionable, so I made sure that I talked to him afterwards, even if it were a couple weeks after the incident. When we did have the opportunity to race, we were able to race a little bit more cleanly, a little bit more respectfully. And then there might have been other things going on in the split group where he was racing that was probably a little bit more aggressive than I would care to. But yeah, the whole iDrive thing has changed so much that it just produces another point of challenge in that kart league racing. And again, I will boost that league all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. It is so fun. You learn so much about karting. It's a great introductory arena to, racing in real life and turning off the simulator. And then if you do get to be so, a little bit of lucky and, skilled enough to be able to win the championship, getting that scholarship, man, what a prize from Margay. What a prize. I saw Rick Neal do some amazing things early on at the beginning of this past season. And I'm looking forward to 2022 so much. And it's only a couple months away, so I'm really looking forward to getting to some Ignite racing. So,
I mean, on behalf of me, on behalf of you, on behalf of the whole iDrive community, I mean, we just a huge shout out to Margay Racing for putting up that prize. I mean, it was interesting a couple of years ago when Kartplex transitioned to light medium class, adding medium and heavy. So now Margay's putting up 3 karts to be used for a season for 3 iDrive champions. So that's no joke. You don't see that very often at your local kart track for a rental league. So real quick though, I mean, we've really covered your 2021. Let's kind of dabble into 2022. I just kind of want to get your thoughts and how you feel going into it. And one thing that I'll kind of mention, that I think that you'll have an advantage on is, I think about myself when I went from 2017 iDrive, then in 2018 Ignite, was, I never did what you did. I never spent time going to Ignite races. I never actually even touched an Ignite kart until I actually got my own. Whereas you've been, while I'm not on track, you've been helping me during my championship year in 2020. You helped your fellow teammate Rick Neal. So you've had your hands on Ignite karts now. It's not like you're going to go into this and be completely blind. I mean, you've gone through a 206 motor, you've done a carburetor, you've done a clutch, you've changed widths on the front and rear end. I mean, you've touched an Ignite kart a lot more than a lot of a generic iDrive champion would have. So, I think that's going to separate you, and obviously, being a little bit, what would I want to say this? I don't know if it's cocky or what, but me being able to kind of give you information, I think is also going to help you out a lot too. Because for me, 2018, I just had to write it off. It was a learning year for me, and I would hate to see, what I know now going back and looking at that kart that I had at the end of the year. Most of the speed that I lacked was probably because I never even opened up the carburetor because I was afraid to open it because I didn't know if I'd be able to put it back together. So, just talk on that. Talk about, how you're feeling going into Ignite this year.
I am really excited, but I am cautious and I'm being realistic with my expectations. Just as I did for iDrive, going into each season, I set myself, a modest amount of different expectations, and as my experience and hopefully success that goes with it, those expectations increase in challenge. I was able to finally close a chapter with iDrive and now finally get here. Although I've already been here, though, just in the mechanic role. So like you're saying, yeah, a lot of these teams that where the adults are the team and the owner, I should say the team owner and the driver, as opposed to some of the younger classes where, they have mom and dad or sponsors that are assisting, the child driver. In my particular case, I've been working on these karts for about 3 years now. Win or lose, you're still learning stuff. And, as you progress, you learn what worked, what didn't work. And I think at this point, working with you 2019, 2020 really helped out. And then I was really able to put that experience to the test last year with Rick Neal. As we kind of got Global Force Kart Sport, off the ground. He introduced it in a low, beta test version of it. Putting my mechanic crafting to the test. Make adjustments, make setups. That I knew that were either going to be good or competitive. But so yeah, absolutely. My experience with you and just being in the paddock for the last several years, I think really helped, Rick Neal out a lot. But no discredit to him. He is a very talented racer. He is a quick learner. We don't get to tweak on the iDrive rental cards, but, so this is his first season. This was his first season working on the card as well. So, his input into the race day setup and things like that, tire pressures and, this thing and the next, it proved that he was ready to face the game and, go out there and be strong. So I think with the two of us getting out there for 2022 together on track, I feel as though that there is going to be that level of camaraderie and, on track ally that, I, kind of enjoyed in 2020 in iDrive. But while we're flying under the Global Force Kart Sport banner next year together, him in the 47, me in the 74 in the heavy class, I've got a great deal to learn because the karts do handle differently. And my experience in the Ignite K3 only extends beyond some practice laps in Rick's scholarship ride or running the demos that you're awarded at the end of a good season. I don't have a whole lot of seat time in the K3, so that little piece of it has got me a little cautious, a little nervous, a little realistic about how well I'm going to be able to sling that kart around the track. You put me in the rental car, they are much heavier. So how deep you can go into a corner. How, hard you can sling that puppy around turn one or in the North Pole. In the K3, I mean, you can tell me all day, Bobby, exactly how it's going to feel, or Rick can tell me exactly how it's going to feel. But until you actually get yourself in that seat and you're just like, oh God, we're going really fast here. I hope I don't crash it because now you're going to have to pay for the repairs. So yeah. I want to be cautious. I want to be careful. I'm not going to be pulling any Max Verstappens out there. I'm not going to be going deep into turn one to, take, just to, get the lead and, lap one. I'm going to race everybody extremely, respectfully because out there, we are having fun. I'm not going to say much older because I don't want to get punched on day one, but the heavy class, they're hobbyists. I think, writ large, they're more hobbyists than they are, kids that want to, go somewhere someday in professional racing. So, I'm not out there to bang fenders like it's iDrive because iDrive, I think, can be, like NASCAR a bit, if you ain't trading paint, you ain't racing. In this particular case, I want to be respectful to my competitors, and I'm a little nervous because I don't want to jack up their card. I definitely don't want to jack up my own, but I'm excited. I'm cautious. I'm realistic. I'm ready to go. The off season, God, dude, I am so bored. I literally cannot wait for the end of March, beginning of April when we can kick this off.
Oh my God. And it makes it worse too because we're in winter, obviously here in the St. Louis area. So you've got that kind of like seasonal depression on top of it being off season and not being able to do anything. It's just it's like the worst time ever. Before we move into 2021, I want to give you a chance to explain exactly what Global Force Kart Sport is. Explain to people what Global Force Kart Sport is and where we can find you online to be able to follow your season this year. And I'll make sure to offer up the links down below on our link dump and on our website at bobbykrug.com.
That's my pride and joy, man. There's always been a little bit of part of me that always wanted to, once I got out of the Navy, the camaraderie amongst the veteran community is uncanny in that, you can talk to somebody who is a military veteran, whether it was Vietnam or Persian Gulf or, modern day military, you guys could have never met each other in the service, but ultimately you're friends. You had that instant camaraderie. And one of the things that I want to do eventually is I want to build an all military veterans karting group. Hopefully, and this is like, top shelf goal. I want it to be the exclusive all military veterans group of St. Louis and of the Midwest region. I know that there are several other similar organizations out there across the nation. I know there's a big one in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. But for the St. Louis area, there's a big military presence here that some people might not be necessarily aware of. You got Scott Air Force Base, you got Jefferson Barracks, you got some Coast Guard here as well. You got Fort Leonard Wood a couple hours away. So, it's a big military area. Global Force Kart Sport, it's that attempt to be able to get veterans together, not really rebrand, but reconnect that camaraderie that we always enjoy. And it gives us something to do. And at the end of the day, we're going to have fun with it. But yeah, Global Force Kart Sport is representative of my time in the service, and just it's my way to eventually bring that goal to real life, and I'm going to have fun with it. And, the Navy was so transformative of a time for me, because before then I was kind of a lost cause. But once I joined the Navy, the military, I mean, it shaped me right up, as it often tends to do. And, karting kind of served that same purpose as well. It's just the next level. It's a different chapter. I'm having so much fun with karting. The karting group that we race with, the families, it really is just that. It's a family, and I enjoy my time at the track. It's my second home. These guys, these girls that are racing, the parents, the team owners, it's a gigantic family, and I just want to be a part of that. But I want to bring a different flavor to the grid, in that I want to help represent and honor military veterans, whether they, passed in the line of duty or they're active service veterans, that, I just want to bring a cause to that. And I really want to represent that group very well within the St. Louis area. And that's what Global Force Kart Sport is truly all about.
Yeah, man. I mean, the whole Global Force Kart Sport idea concept, I mean, it's an awesome thing to be able to connect active duty or veterans, together, and to be able to bring that community together over another passion like motorsports, especially. I mean, it's just super cool, and it gives them this social circle to be able to connect with other people. And to me, I think that's a really awesome thing that you're doing. So,
thank you.
But before we transition and end the show, I wanted to dabble on some of the things that, giving myself a 2021 recap. We kind of talked about what you did in iDrive, and I kind of want to talk about, 3 of the main things that I did in 2021. And without getting into too much detail with the Skip Barber race series that I competed in, we'll leave that for a separate episode. That in itself was such a super awesome experience that
was insane.
That we can pretty much talk about kind of how I got into it, talk about the races and the future plans in a future episode. But one of the big things that I want to talk about, I got 3 things excluding the race series that I wanted to dabble in on. And the first thing being me getting my new job with Skip Barber. So Matt, you were there with me, sort of, that event when I got the job offer. But what happened was, I got invited out to do the first race at COTA, which, like I said, we'll talk about the race series stuff once we get into that next episode. But your job was done. I would say, was it Friday or Saturday? When was that? I believe it was Friday.
Yeah, it was a Friday.
So you ended up, you came down to film me doing the Formula Series stuff. And then in addition to me racing, I had the deal to go film the Skip Barber touring car team. So it's a race team that races in TC America with the SRO Motorsports Group. And so I basically stayed over the rest of the weekend to be able to shoot the TC stuff. And I thought it was just like an exchange of services, right? Like I would go shoot video, and then I'd be able to race the Formula car, which is, basically how I've done most of my stuff in motorsports has been some kind of trade deal with media services. So I stayed there the additional 2 days. You flew out, you flew back home, because I've got one camera. What are you gonna do for me when I'm running around with the camera? And I think you might have had some family stuff to go tend to, and why would you spend the extra time in Texas? Besides going to Fix, which, like I said, I don't want to. I just keep thinking of Fix and the amazing food, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in the other episode as well. But I stayed there the additional 2 days, and I remember one of the things that happened was I was at the hotel, which is an amazing hotel, the Hilton Garden Inn, Austin, Texas, near the airport, which that's where we stayed when we went down there. That's where we stay when I'm there with Skip Barber. This is an awesome hotel. And I went to the bar and I ordered a burger, and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and it's taking a long time for me to get this burger, right? And because for whatever reason, this kitchen was super slow this time. And I don't know if it's just a characteristic of this hotel or if it was just that night. So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And I finally get this burger and I'm like, okay, cool. I've got a hotel room upstairs. Matt's not there. I'll just get some nice, alone, peace and quiet time with my dinner, with my burger that I've waited an hour for. So I go wandering to the elevator, and I'm going to get in the elevator, and the door's open, and two familiar faces are walking out of the elevator, and it's none other than Carter and Gabby Fartuck. And they look at me and they're like, Bobby, what's going on? And obviously this is before I got hired on, so it's like seeing your teacher out in public, right? I'm like, oh, hi, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Fartuck. And I walk in the elevator with my burger, and they're like, oh, we're getting ready we just ordered pizza. You want to come have food with the rest of the team? And in my mind, I'm like, it's been a long
hanging out in the teacher's lounge.
Yeah, it's been a long day, right? I filmed for the TC stuff, and I believe this was the first day, so it rained, and so I was like all wet and cold, and finally I got upstairs, took a shower, got my burger. I just wanted to eat, right? I just want to chill out, eat. Do I really want to go out and be social? Not really, but they offered it, and it's like one of those things. Is like one of the other.
Yeah, you don't want to be rude.
No, I don't want to be rude, but then also, I'm a man of saying yes. Like, you never know what turning down an opportunity will do, and you don't know what an opportunity will take you to. So I was like, sure, I'll go eat. And sure enough, I went, and the whole team was there. It was Carter and Gabby, obviously, and Eric, and then some of the higher ups in the company, if you will. The CEO, Anthony, was there. And of course, I knew all these people, right? I mean, we had done all these school events with them, so it was a fun time. I was hanging out with them. I knew everybody, and I went to the hotel room, and I was like, I'm really glad I went. And went to the track the next day and started filming. And I remember Anthony coming up to me, and he's like, "You having a good time?" And he always checks in on me, right? He always making sure I'm doing fine. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "If you ever need anything, you just ask." Which, for me, and my previous bosses. There was something that Anthony was giving off to me that felt special that I didn't really feel from any other previous boss. He was just like, it's not like, hey, are you getting that job done? Or, hey, are you doing this? Or, hey, are you doing that? It was like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you okay? Do you need anything? Like, what's up? And that to me was super special. And it was weird too, because, before going to CODA, I was spending all this time at Gateway. At this time, I was in the process of basically rebuilding all these go-karts. And I just graduated from college with this mass comm degree. As you said, we both share this mass comm degree. You don't share the degree. You didn't get that far. But and I had this mass comm degree, and I'm working on rental carts, and I'm like, damn, like, this is not what I went to college for. And I'm sitting there, I'm shooting video at CODA, and I'm like, this is what I want to do, right? This is what I went to school for. This is the passion, right? And so I went there, and I'm thinking this entire time, like, man, I need the job offer. And fortunately, Anthony came up and he's like, did that thing, like, how's it going? Yada, yada, yada. And he like looked at me and he's like, so when are you going to start working for us? And I'm like, thank God you said that, because I'm thinking the same thing. Fast forward 2 weeks of paperwork and everything else, and I got the job offer. It was like, we want you to come on board and do all the video stuff. And the official title, as I mentioned earlier, marketing manager. So I got that job offer, started working for them, and I believe it was April or so, June, and my first job with Skip Barber was actually flying out and going to the NASCAR race at Circuit of the Americas. The first time they ever raced at Circuit of the Americas. I missed the Carplex Awards ceremony for it, and I went over there and just shot video and hung out with Anthony and Joe and John Free. It was such a cool, awesome time, and that just really just set the tone of like, wow, and the job that I have, and this is the final note that I'll make on having the new job, Greg Dingus, another awesome guy that helped teach me everything that I was able to kind of pass on to you. He kind of always coaches me through life, right? And he's like, you need to have a 5-year plan. And I'm like, well, I'm 23. Like, what's a 5-year plan? I'm not like looking at retirement, and he's like, no, you just need to know, like, what you want to do professionally. And like, I can't see my 5-year plan without Skip Barber in it. And it's like, this is such a job that's like a dream job of mine that I thought I was going to have to go through 3 or 4 jobs to get to. Yeah. So to be able to have this career with Skip Barber, it's been incredible for me to be able to have it. I mean, I don't know if you have anything to add on that. Honestly, I mean, I've pretty much covered that, but that was definitely one of the biggest parts of 2021 for me.
Other than stating that, your success, and not just your success as in Bobby Krug, just, anybody in general, listeners and whatever, I found success can be determined based on those that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with a good, healthy, tribe, good things are going to happen, not just to you, but to everybody. The other thing to speak to is, you never know what's going to happen when you put yourself outside of your comfort zone. And you may not even be going into it, looking for an opportunity. Sometimes, your own personality may bring forth the opportunity. So surrounding yourself with good people, taking yourself out of your comfort zone, trying new things, and letting yourself be open to the unknown. Sometimes that's going to really benefit you. And in your particular case, when those elevator doors opened, and then a couple days later you tell me of what went down, I'm like, you better run with this and just enjoy it for as long as you can, because Skip Barber Racing School, it's a very class act organization, and doing what they do for rising drivers as well as current professional drivers, getting acclimated to a track that they've never been to before. I mean, there is a wealth of opportunities within that opportunity. So God only knows where you're going to end up, but I definitely see you and Skip Barber it being a real good fit. And I was so excited for you because you found stability, you found your tribe, you found your people, and it's doing you and the company great things. And so I just continue to wish you nothing but happiness and prosperity with Skip Barber, because they're a great group of people.
Dude, I couldn't have said all that better myself. I mean, the life advice you gave in there, I mean, is completely parallel to what I've experienced. And also, I mean, I've said this once in this podcast, and I've said it to you multiple times, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without you, bro. Because like, if I wasn't able to make like those school videos that we originally got, contacted to do, which we'll get into that in the Skip Barber episode, but without those videos and without kind of proving what I can do, I wouldn't have been able to get the job. So, I mean, you were able to help me out tremendously with that. The other things I did this year, and one thing that I already planned to do in a separate episode, was talk about, one of the things at Skip Barber that I did this year, a part of my job, was I got to be a part of the Superstar Racing Experience. That racing series that was started, Ray Evernham, Tony Stewart, their brainchild of a racing what a racing series should look like. I was a part of that for 5 of the 6 races, and so I've got some cool stories of dealing with Ray Evernham and Tony Stewart and Bobby Labonte, Elio Castroneves. I got stories. Like, I got stories of rubbing elbows with them and interacting with them, and that whole deal. I'm going back and thinking about it right now, is still like unbelievable. I mean, that's crazy. Like, even saying that out loud and like telling you that like on this show, it just still doesn't even sound real. And it happened. It's all legit.
Yeah, I hate you for not joining.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, in the moment, it was a lot of stuff. It was rough. I mean, I'm Bobby Krug, the media guy, but they had me as Bobby Krug, the mechanic, Bobby Krug, the tire changer. Arguably, people could say it as like one of the best racing series that they watched on TV this year. Maybe and by TV ratings wise, we were second to NASCAR Cup in the United States. So, I mean, that's pretty big. We were beating out Xfinity Series. We were beating out IndyCar. It was crazy. And we were on, mainstream TV. We were live on CBS. So it was crazy cool. And like I said, we'll get more into that in a future episode. And the last thing that I'll talk about for my 2021 season in review, and this didn't make my 2021 recap video. Really, that was just the Formula Car Series stuff. But another racing thing that I did this year that I thought was really cool that I just want to talk about real quick on the airwaves was getting to race at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the WKA series with Marga Ignite running the Ignite K3. Special thanks to Kurt Kuhn, by the way, for enabling that opportunity. I got to race his kart and go down there, and I went down there with Austin Russell, and I had a great time. It was awesome. Ran in the sprint track series. They had a little sprint track course set up there in turns 3 and 4 of the oval inside the racetrack, kind of like how Gateway Carplex is at Gateway. And this was one of the first majors that I did. I obviously raced in SCUSA Miami, but that was a whole nother thing. This was actually a lot more enjoyable in my opinion. I raced on the sprint track and was competitive. I was racing most of the time in the top 5. My results didn't show for it though. I mean, I was able to run with a lot of the Ignite guys that are really successful. I think of Alexander Surley, Avery Schwalm, Jeff Dolian, both Perkins, and it was awesome time. It was really cool to run the sprint track, but like I said, didn't have the results to show for it. So you can go back and watch the vlog, and it really explains it out in detail. But like one of the races, for example, I was going on the inside to make a pass on Jeff Dolian, and I got up on the curb, and he kind of looked back at me and threw his hands up, and I hit the curb pretty hard. And these curbs are tall, right? I mean, they're like, I believe they're concrete curbs at Charlotte. So it's not like the rubber curbs where there's a little bit of like you can scrape off of it and it actually gives away a little bit of the rubber. I mean, it's still hard when you hit a Cartplex curb, but these are concrete curbs. Like you're gonna bend a chassis, right?
Yeah.
So I hit that curb though, and it knocked something up in the carburetor. I was down on power for like 3 or 4 laps. Took the carburetor apart, and I couldn't find what the problem was. So it was just a freak deal on one of my races. And the other races, I just lost the endurance aspect of it. And I think that's one thing that, like, you know, sure, these races may be 15 laps long, but to be able to wheel a cart around, you know, I mean, it's a pretty physical sport. I mean, you're not strapped into these carts. You have to have a lot of core strength. We were talking about that earlier this morning about kind of workout routines before we started recording the show, but you have to have a lot of energy to wheel these carts around for that period of time. So by the time I got through with that second race, man, I was just exhausted. I just lost my consistency, lost my skill, and I missed out. But there was times in qualifying and practice where I was showing top 3 speed. So really successful time on the sprint track. But where I had the most fun, and if you're listening out there and you race carts, and this is for you too, Matt, so but turn on your ears, Matt Zigaitis, because this is going to be something you want to take note of. I raced my first ever karting road race ever. Mm-hmm. And it was the most enjoyable time of my life. If you have never raced a road race, I highly recommend it. It is definitely sketchy. I was very upset with how I performed in that second Charlotte race, just losing the consistency that I had. And you can see this in the vlog. I know I said that before, but the vlog really tells the story a lot better than how I'm going to be able to tell it now. But, you know, I'm sitting there after the race and I'm deflated and I'm like, dang it. You know, like why did I come here? That sucked. And Ken Williams like yells at me and he's like, bro, like you got 1 hour until the start of the road race. You could technically change over the gear. I mean, that's all you really had to do to be able to run a road race. The beautiful thing of the Ignite series is these carts are spec. I mean, you can change some things to be able to make your setup better, but
there's not so much you can do.
Yeah, you can pretty much slap a new gear on and you're ready to run the road race. And I'm like, you know what? Do I want to spend the extra, and I think it was something dumb, like an extra $150 to run the road race that day. And I'm like, do I really want to do it? And I went over to the registration. I'm like, how much is it? And she's like, $150 or whatever it was. And I was like, do I really want to spend that kind of money on this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's how it usually goes in racing, right? It's just money, right? You'll be able to find that again someday, but be able to race at Charlotte Motor Speedway, I mean, come on. So I'm like, how many people are registered for senior? And she's like, well, we got one, and it's Austin Russell. And let me tell another part of the story. Austin Russell is meanwhile dying at our Airbnb because he was sick and couldn't make it to the sprint track races. So while I'm racing the sprint track, he's stuck at the Airbnb sick. And it was just devastating every morning, like that we were down there in Charlotte, like waking up and being like, how are you feeling, Austin? He's like, I'm dying. I can't do it. And I'm like, so can I still take your car and leave you here dead and go race go-karts? And he's like, yeah, I'll be fine. We'll try again tomorrow. And I'm like, oh God. And it ended up being a point where I took him to like urgent care to get tested for COVID, and he didn't test positive for COVID. And COVID's a serious thing, right? And I took the proper protocols, right? I was distanced myself. I wore a mask once Austin had that problem. And then once he got tested and we figured out it wasn't COVID, you know, then I was able to relax a little bit more. But no, he ended up joining me for that final day on the road race, which was cool to see. But, you know, I saw that Austin was registered for that first road race, and he was the only senior registered, and he's not there. And I'm like, I can be the only Ignite senior. That means I'm going to win this damn race. And sure enough, I spent the $150, changed the gear, got on the grid right before the start of the race, and I diced it up with 3 Ignite Masters to be able to kind of feel what the racing was going to be like for the next day. So I would be prepared when all the senior drivers came over, and it was the time of my life. And then ended up winning the race, obviously. You know, I was the first place driver and the last place driver. And the whole scene of me coming out of the cart and just laughing and smiling. I mean, I wasn't laughing and smiling because I won the race. I'm not that, like, dumb, right?
Dude,
like,
you raced the Roval. How could you not be just smiling ear to ear?
Oh, my God. I mean, it's just, like, it was so cool. Like, the things that I remember about that track that made it fun, I mean, that section after the first corner when you're kind of making your transition into the infield. I mean, it's concrete walls on both sides. In a go-kart, that's scary to look at, but it was just like a tunnel of just awesome epicness. It was just crazy in a go-kart because you're on the ground, right? You're not in a car, so your sense of vision over that, I mean, you're just in a tunnel, right? And then the front stretch chicane that they use, you know, that where it dives in kind of to the infield grass, and then you got that quick right left into the tri-oval to the start finish line. That in a go-kart is flat out, and you hit these massive bumps, and it kind of shoots you out right out to the safer barrier, and it's like the sketchiest thing, and you would never think that, right? You think this NASCAR track is so big and you're in a go-kart, like it's boring, I'm just going to hold it open flat out the entire time and just use the steering wheel. No, dude, it's not that at all. And the thing is like these tracks, like Charlotte, it just went under a repave not too long ago, obviously, and especially for some of these new parts of the racetrack, it's still bumpy in a go-kart, man. Like, it's still wild. So, huge recommend. If you ever get the chance to run a road race, I mean, I don't plan on doing much karting in 2022, but if I can make a road race, if I can go back to Charlotte to run the road race, I would love to do that. If I can make it to Mid-Ohio, they do one. WKA does a road race at Mid-Ohio. I'd love to go do that. I'd love to race at Gateway on the road race. It's just an awesome time. And then obviously the last day, kind of wrap up my Charlotte story, my last day is when all the seniors came over and spoiled my fun. But I was fortunately able to be competitive. I think the practice on that first day was really good, really valuable. And me, Avery Schwalm, and Alexander Surley all kind of made a break, which I find this all ironic too, because I think of my two biggest rivals in karting, and I'm stuck with them in the top three. I'm like, oh, great. I wonder who's going to get tag teamed on and left in the dust. Probably the guy that pissed both of these guys off before, right? You know, I was battling out with these guys, and I think I talked with Schwalm kind of before, like, bro, and I was coming fresh off being defeated by Surly in the Challenge Series the year prior. So I'm kind of like, bro, I can't let this guy beat me again. So we gotta work against him. And sure enough, you can go back and watch the video. You know, we all broke away, and Surly's a guy that doesn't like to be the pusher. He likes to be the guy up in front. He wants to be the guy in first place all the time. So he kind of got to the lead early on, and me and Schwalm kind of backed up, and we're like, okay, we're going to get a run on him. And sure enough, we got a really good run coming out of the infield section, going up onto the banking in turn one, and Schwalm just beating the back of his helmet. I thought he was going to break his helmet so hard. He was hitting it so hard, like trying to, come on, we're bump drafting, and pointed out wide. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I got a really good run coming down to his bumper. And I hit his bumper, and we started making a breakaway. And you're not supposed to bump draft, but everybody bump drafted. As long as you weren't bump drafting in front of a WK official, they didn't know that you were doing it. So I come down this banking, right? And yeah, exactly. Straight up John Cena, like, you can't see me, bro. I come down this banking, right? And I just slam the back of Schwalm's bumper, and I'm like, we're going, right? And so we bump, and we go around Surly, and we check out from him, and I'm not looking back, right? I'm just like, all right, tucked in down the back straightaway. Oh, shoot, there's the WK official. All right, back off for a second. Wait a second. There he is. Waved to the WK official. Hi, sir. Not doing anything. And then as soon as we get past him, bam, bam, bam on his back bumper, we get to turn one of the road course, and I look back, and I do not see Surly at all. And so I'm like, wow, we've made this a 2-kart battle for the lead. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to seal the deal. I really had him set up really well, but unfortunately, lap traffic got in the way, and it came down to a thing of like whoever was pushing that lap traffic car was going to be the guy to win. And I just made a move on lap traffic and was trying to get around him and wasn't able to complete the pass. Schwalm tucked in behind the guy and was able to push him. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to seal the deal, but still second place in that kind of situation was still super cool. And it was like, I went to Schwalm and I was still smiling and laughing like I was the first day. And I was like, dude, and it was cool for me too, because Schwalm, to be able to win a big race like that, I've seen him come so close in so many races, and I'll be excited to have him on the show and tell you guys about his story, because he's got a lot of awesome stories from a lot of different of these Ignite majors. But to be able to race him and finish 1-2 with Schwalm at an Ignite major was really cool and special to me, and to be able to finish second at that race was super cool. But I'll go back, and my recommendation here towards the end of the show, if you get the chance to run a road race in a kart, it's the most fun you'll ever have. I don't know if I can do it in a 2-cycle, but I can definitely do it in a 4-cycle. Just a low power drafting ability that you have to do, and going at those high speeds. I think we were doing like 70, 80 miles an hour. I mean, this is awesome. This is fun stuff. So I give it a huge recommend. But here at the end of the show, Matt, you got anything to add to anything that we've discussed here?
I would appreciate anybody that's listening. Check out ATA Network's YouTube channel if you're new to the podcast and you want to get a little bit more context to what we're talking about, he's got several years worth of his karting journey, as well as his introduction into Skip Barber Formula Series. And, we'll touch all on that next episode. But, if you're not doing anything, go over to YouTube, check him out. And if you aren't entertained enough after that, I would definitely invite you to swing by my social media stuff. Check out Global Force Kart Sport. We're going to be new to Ignite this coming year, new to the Challenge Series. Eventually, we'll get to some of those Ignite Majors events, because nothing would really do me proud than to run Daytona and Charlotte and Brickyard and things like that. But Global Force 74 on the socials. Check us out. Check out our team page at Facebook, Instagram. Got some new things going on this year in terms of social media representation, but definitely check out Bobby, ATA Network on YouTube, on the socials, bobbykrug.com. It's going to be entertaining regardless.
Mm-hmm. All those links to everything, all the links to my channel, to my social media, to Matt's social media, you'll all be able to find that in the link dump. And let me double check this, but I believe if you just visit simply bobbykrug.com/podcast, it'll bring you to a webpage where you'll be able to see what I used to call the link dump, but it doesn't sound very delicious. I don't like calling it a dump, but you'll be able to find the link dump, and then it's organized by episodes. So you'll be able to kind of click through there and you see episode 1, welcome back to the podcast or whatever. Then it'll have all the links of everything that we talked about there on the show. So you'll be able to click there. You can go check out Matt, go give him the follow. I mean, he's worked really hard for me over these past couple of years, and to be honest, I couldn't think of a better guest to have on the show for this return episode. So I appreciate you coming on here, Matt. And
it's an honor. I know you've been wanting to do this for some time now, and I think this episode and future episodes, they're going to be awesome. Lots of good things to talk about. Karting racing in the Midwest is huge, so definitely stay tuned. We're going to have some savory guests.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to have you back on. We're going to talk about a lot of awesome things. And then I'll have some, I got a lot of awesome guests lined up. So once again, thanks, Matt, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks to all you guys for tuning in and listening to this return episode of the ATA Network podcast. If you're not already following us, make sure you click that follow button on your preferred podcast listening platform. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next episode of the ATA Network podcast.